Greetings one and all to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital worlds. Well, welcome and good evening, wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8, and this is Let's Play Blind of the New World. Blind. Double checking OBS. Everything appears to be fine. Let's hop into this. Dive into the world. I cannot use my controller. Okay. Before my eyes, a desolate city stretched out to the horizon. The featureless, colorless buildings, sprouting up every which way, reminded me of a graveyard with its countless tombstones. If any person from the 21st century could see what I saw, they would probably say the same. This city looks like it's dying. The people who inhabited this place weren't much different from the city itself. However, there was one thing wrong with my view on the world. It wasn't the citizens who were dying. The death existed behind the pupils of my eyes. In fact, this present was the exact shining future that the people of the past had envisioned. But to see the beauty of the present, a device was needed. The device was called the electron cornea. At birth, these electron corneas were transplanted into each and every person's eyes. Though these electron corneas Through these electron corneas, modern people were able to receive the data that painted the world with fresh, new holograms. This new data replaced the colorless world of tombstones, becoming the true face of modern society. But not everyone was able to see this new reality. People like me would never get the chance. Those with death growing in their eyes were not graced with the ability to look out on that world. People like me weren't able to see the beautiful portrait for what it was. Instead, they were only able to see a rough outline. Only we were able to see the desolate, emaciated skeleton of the city. The people who resided in this inorganic machine. These people, me included, were called the blind, or just blind, by the people around them. Though few actually remembered, blindness used to refer to extremely weak eyesight or a complete lack of eyesight. Of course, that definition was severely outdated. In a world where technology was able to cure diseases and circumvent disasters, such cases of actual blindness had long since disappeared. In the modern world, blindness now referred to the phenomenon where one was unable to see the holograms due to some malfunction in the electron corneas. Even in a world this sophisticated and advanced, scientists had been unable to discover the reason for this malfunction. and it dubbed this blindness an incurable disease. From birth, each and every person was able to view beautiful holograms that covered this barren land. Thus, they were unable to even wrap their heads around the symptoms of this fabled blindness. In their world of holograms, rumors of this mysterious disease spread among modern citizens, and as the rumors spread, the dread that they too would be claimed by this blindness spread behind it. Since the illness was so rare, some even chose to ignore the fear and dismiss the existence of the disease as lies and conspiracy. If only it was more than a ghost story. Unfortunately, it was real. My existence proved that. There was no holograms that covered the world that my eyes saw. Because of this, the blind like me had no choice but to view and ponder the massive incongruities of modern society. For example, most design choices were based on the holograms that displayed over objects. Why build something flashy in a world of data when you can choose to display an object any way you want with a simple hologram coding? In this world of holograms, a rotting, collapsing house of straw, a nondescript pile of stones, a fragile castle made of sand, could all be made to look like a shining, golden castle. In other words, the blind were forced to view the naked face behind the makeup of the holograms. I remember there being another story similar to this, where it focused on the main character viewing the world in a different way, though there were some design decisions that I disliked with the story, but it was technically considered a hentai and also a psychological horror, but the music is absolutely fascinating, the story itself. It's just some design decisions, such as certain aspects of some characters' designs, I question the why. That was why. Oh, that's fitting. A person like me could say that this beautiful world of holograms was nothing more than a world of ruin. It could all be taken away in a heartbeat. This world where only the blind knew the truth, and everyone else went about their delusional, happy lives. This was the world, this modern world, where I lived. Day 1. Mornings were always so busy. No matter how much time passed, would that fact ever change? With that thought on my mind, I stepped off the bus. I had no idea how sophisticated the bus might look to those who could see the holograms, but to me it was just a simple lump of steel. Finding the right bus, something others could distinguish at a glance, became a major inconvenience for someone like me, who couldn't see the holograms. The long path to my school was flooded with people. The path was on a low hill, a short distance from the main route, through the central shopping district. It was the largest path to the front gate of the school, so most students climbed this hill on their way to school each day. It was a sight that seemed so common and peaceful. It was a daily scene that would fill most people with a sense of security and relief. But in the midst of that peace, I alone felt my unusual sense of unease. Seeing all those students moved as one reminded me of a herd of animals on a mass migration. Most people would have a problem with someone comparing people to a herd of animals. Unlike animals, people have their own defining characteristics that enabled others to distinguish them from people around them. Because of those unique characteristics, it felt like a rather inappropriate comparison. But if there was a problem, it was my fault, not theirs. Children my age were all filled with passion for life, brimming with their own unique personalities. That much was obvious. But to the blind like me, all of those distinguishing characteristics evaporated, leaving behind only a vague outline. So just like a herd of animals, there wasn't a lot to help me distinguish between individuals. In a world divorced from the holograms, personality was stripped away. Clothes, jewelry, hairstyles, even faces. This is a world where people used holograms to distinguish themselves from the people around them. Although each of these students behaved differently, in my eyes they all looked like cheaply manufactured goods pumped out of a factory. Hair neatly trimmed, dressed in the same neatly white-pressed hologram suits. Sure, they all had different heights and builds, but there wasn't much else to help distinguish them from each other. In previous eras, education institutions, prisons, and the armed forces used this kind of uniform, appearance, and dress to instill a sense of unity and sameness. But that had nothing to do with this generation of students. Each of these students was an individual. If I could see their holograms, maybe they would be dressed super flashy. Maybe they would still be very neat and proper. Maybe they would be dressed up in whatever new trend was in style now. The appearance each person wanted to show the world could only be seen through the holograms, but that appearance was unseeable, unknowable to those with the blindness. It was a scene I saw every day, yet I couldn't stop the insecurity from creeping in, telling me that I was different. I couldn't see the holograms. I just set my appearance to copy their style. After all, it was my appearance in a hologram world that I couldn't see anyway. No matter how I dressed myself up, it was all just a lie. It was a lie that only I couldn't see. What could I do if I looked weird in their eyes anyway? Honestly, it was completely different from a person being unable to distinguish individual animals within a herd. I couldn't even distinguish myself from the people around me. The difference between an animal and a person was like the difference between the blind and the people around them. Even in a crowd, I could feel a distance between myself and the people around me. I felt like an ugly duckling, and I couldn't stand that feeling. With that usual feeling of depression hanging over me, I walked up the path toward the school. Despite the usual nervousness that I felt every day, nothing happened on my climb up that hill. The walk to school, eating at my nerves, each and every step, was nothing but a peaceful walk for the rest of the students. Since no one looked at me funny, I figured there was nothing weird about the way I looked. With that confirmed, I allowed myself a little sigh of relief. And right as I was about to enjoy that sigh, the feeling of unease crept back in. As I approached the door to the school, I heard the hum of the students getting louder. Not too loud, not too soft, just the unmistakable hum of human activity I started imagining the humming was people whispering about something strange they noticed about me, and that brought out all of the unpleasant memories buried deep in my mind. But thankfully, and despite all my worries, none of the students were looking at me. With the fact bringing a small sense of relief, I looked around to find the source of the commotion. I began to get a sense of what was going on. It seemed like the sound was coming from somewhere near the front door of the school. The sound only grew louder as I walked toward the front door, making me wonder what all the fuss was about. At the center of it all, a girl, different in every way, was standing there, looking as if she was completely separate from this world. The moment I saw her, the world grew quiet. In the torrent of moving bodies, flowing here and there in clusters, she stood alone, while all of the students were flooding toward the school. She stood against the flow. She was different. Seeing her dressed like that, I could vaguely remember seeing a picture of a girl dressed in a school uniform somewhere. Her long black hair flowed down her back. Her eyes, staring off into the distance, were deep and clear, like two black pearls. Her lips were clamped tightly together. She looked as elegant as a princess who had just stepped out of an old fairy tale. Right when I laid eyes on her, it was like looking at a colorful image painted against a black and white backdrop. In this dull world of grays, a light was beginning to shine forth. Why was she dressed like that, though? Was I imagining things? No matter how many times I shook my head or rubbed my eyes, when I looked back in her direction, the image of her slender figure, wrapped up in that school uniform, was, surprisingly, still as vivid as ever. But why? I couldn't get the words past my lips. In this world of dreariness, here was the new figure, so full of life. I could only chew on those thoughts and stare at the girl in front of me.
당신